Hey, church, I'm so excited that you're watching this. I hope it means that you are joining with us. We're going to try to finish 28 days of Acts. For the whole month of February, we're doing our prayer journal together, and we gave these out Sunday. And if you didn't get one, we have one at the church, or I can email you one. You just let me know. But we're excited about this. And so every day, myself or Pastor Tim or Pastor Ron will be doing videos where we'll be walking through and kind of giving you a little running commentary, just briefly, about what you've been reading that day. Every day we're reading a chapter of Acts, and we're having specific prayer requests that we're praying for our church and our friends and our neighbors. This is going to be a great time, and I'm really excited. But before I get into the commentary part about the reading, if you can tell from the background, I'm at home. It's early in the morning, and much like you guys, that's just kind of how life is. I can hear the wash machine in the background running and the dishwasher running, and that's life. And so I hope that you carve out a time that is best for you and your family to join us and do this. And like I said, with this prayer journal that we got, on the second page you can see some prayer requests, and then on the other side, there's more lines, and those are for answered prayer requests. I hope before you start this, you write down, and maybe you have some prayer requests personally for your family or medically or for friends, or maybe even for the church, something that you'd like to see happen. You'd like to see God open for 28 days, and write those down, and just let's see what God answers in the next 28 days. But today is February 1st. It is the first day, so you should have already read Acts chapter 1. I know for many of you, if you were there Sunday, I preached a part of this, and so I don't want to be repetitive, but the very beginning of Acts, it starts out with the disciples and Jesus on top of the mount, and he is about to ascend into the heaven to be at the right hand of his Father. And it's just kind of a great time. He was crucified, he's been resurrected, he's walked around for 40 days, and he's appeared to disciples, he's appeared to 500, and he has lots of teaching, and he gives them a last couple words of the wisdom in the first kind of 8 verses. And we talked about that Sunday, about that we should be ready to go, and he gives out a plan in verse 8 that says that we should go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. And what happens is, not only is that an explanation of how we should outreach, we should start in our own city, go statewide, go nation, and go to the ends of the earth, but it also lays out the whole book of Acts. Up all the way up into chapter 7, it's really the ministry in Jerusalem. It's their hometown, their city. In chapter 7, a man named Stephen gets killed for his belief. And what happens is all the Christians decide to flee and they run away. And then in chapter 9, we see Paul's conversion. And Jesus meets Paul on a road and converts him and takes him from a persecutor and a killer of Christians to the chief follower, the man who ends up writing most of the New Testament. And it's just a great conversion, and the rest of Acts is basically following around Paul and seeing how he evangelizes and how he walks around the world among the Jews and the Gentiles, and all the conflicts that racial barriers come with, and all the craziness that ensues in kind of the church area, and how he evangelizes. And it goes on after that. It goes on where Jesus, now after he tells them this, ascends into heaven, and the disciples are just kind of looking upwards, and 2 angels have to come down and say, guys, go get to work. It's time for the church to start. And we see that the disciples go back to the upper room where Jesus left them before his crucifixion, before his trial, before his beating, and they're there, and they start to pray. It says they devoted themselves to pray, which is what we're doing. And during this time, Peter stands up and he reminds them, they are kind of downtrodden a little bit. Their Messiah has now left this earth, and now 11 men are tasked with evangelizing the whole world. And we see that Peter stands up and he says, you know what? Judas did what he had to do, and God told us from the very beginning in the Old Testament that we were going to be betrayed. Jesus was going to be betrayed. And so, but we need help. We need to fill it in. And so he stands up and he says, we need another apostle. And if you remember from Sunday, an apostle is somebody who has seen Jesus, who heard all of his teachings, and is willing to go and teach others about Jesus. And so Peter basically says, well, it has to be somebody that was there from the beginning of Jesus to there that was the end. And they come up with 2 guys, Justus and Matthias. And basically, they pray about it, they talk about it. Two guys were awesome, they were great, they've seen all of it, and they end up just basically drawing straws. And it was Matthias. And so Matthias joins the other 11 disciples, which in the book of Acts now call them apostles because Jesus has left. They're no longer students of Jesus. They are now the teachers. And so that's kind of how Acts 1 ends. It's kind of a great beginning of the church, and we're going to see in the very next chapter tomorrow as we read together what happens, and it's an exciting time. But one of the biggest takeaways besides Acts 1:8 of how we should evangelize is this. At the very end of it, it comes down to Justus and Matthias. And the biggest takeaway that God showed me this morning was that just because you're not up front in ministry, God is not done with you yet. We read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we read about all the disciples, and we never really hear about all the other people that are there, but there would have been hundreds there. And here we go, Matthias and Justus, two guys that we've really never heard much about in Scripture until now. All of a sudden, they're on the front. So maybe for you or maybe for somebody else that's in ministry, you're in church and you do this and you're not kind of in the front doing ministry. God's not done with you yet. God can call you out from behind and put you in front, and I hope you're ready because that's what we're at First Baptist. We're ready to put those in the back into the front. Guys, I hope you're having a great time, and I hope that you follow what we're praying for today. We're praying for the leadership of our church, the pastors, the deacons, the committees, and then pray for our wisdom and sensitivity to God's direction and wisdom for our church and for the next 28 days. Guys, I'm so excited for this month, and I hope you are too. God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow.